The first sign of war wasn't a noise. It was a silence. The kind that made you put your coffee down mid-sip and listen. Our backyard was never this quiet. Not since we moved in. No wind through the oak leaves. No birds. No laughter echoing from across the fence. Just the sunlit stillness of early summer and the faint hum of tension settling over our slice of paradise. I stepped on the deck barefoot, coffee mug warm in my hands. My wife, Erin, was already out there, leaning on the railing, her robe pulled tight against the morning chill. She didn't turn to look at me, just nodded toward the pool. The water was calm. Too calm. "Where are they?" she asked softly. They meant Karen Grant's kids. Twin blurs of noise, sugar, and sticky entitlement. The HOA president's perfect offspring, who had a habit of slipping through the fence like raccoons and treating our private pool like a public attraction. But today, nothing. Not even a wet flip-flop or half-eaten popsicle. That's when I knew something had changed. Maybe they finally got the hint, I said, though even I didn't believe it. Erin gave a dry laugh. Or maybe the Queen's planning her next move. Karen Grant, our neighbor 3 doors down, the self-appointed monarch of Oak Creek. President of the HOA for 3 years running, 5'6" of weaponized manners, pastel pantsuits, and a laminated copy of the community covenant always tucked into her oversized tote bag like a holy text. She hadn't always been our nemesis. When Erin and I first bought the house, we thought we'd made it. Dream home, clean sidewalks, friendly neighbors waving from freshly waxed SUVs. The American dream, Instagram ready. The yard was big, flat, sun-drenched, a blank canvas. And the pool? That was the crown jewel. I spent 9 weekends carving it out with my own hands. Shovel, sweat, and sacrifice. It was supposed to be our sanctuary. A place for barbecues, cannonballs, and quiet starlet swims. That lasted 2 weeks. The day school let out, Karen's kids discovered a mysteriously loosened board in the fence. And from then on, they were in the water more than we were. No knocks, no calls, just splashes, shrieks, and our patio covered in neon towels and muddy footprints. I asked her nicely once. She laughed, a short, clipped sound that echoed like ice in a glass. "They're just kids," she'd said. "We're building community." When I installed a lock, she fined us for restricting access to shared visual assets. When we put up security cameras, she claimed a violation of neighborly privacy. It became a game. Her rules, her board, her version of the truth. I didn't want a war. I wanted peace. But it's hard to make peace with someone who thinks your backyard belongs to the zip code. Erin touched my hand, pulling me back to the present. "She's quiet," she said. "I don't like it. She'll make noise soon enough." As if summoned by prophecy, a sharp rap echoed from the front door. We exchanged a look. She wouldn't. She would. I opened the door. Karen stood there, lips pinched, sunglasses perched like judgment on her nose. In her hand was a bright yellow envelope, the kind that only meant trouble. "Good morning, neighbor," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Lovely weather, isn't it?" Her perfume hit like floral tear gas. I took the envelope, opened it. Violation notice. Failure to promote aquatic fellowship fine. $250. What the hell is... It's all in the bylaws, she said sweetly, adjusting her sunglasses. Page 57. Section 14B. You'll find it under Community Engagement Encouragements. Erin appeared behind me. You find us because our pool isn't social enough. Karen tilted her head. An underused feature reflects poorly on neighborhood unity. You understand, I'm sure. I didn't slam the door. I closed it, quietly, but something inside me snapped. You can only poke a bear so many times before it stops being polite. Erin crossed her arms. What now? I looked at the envelope, then at the pool glittering under the sun. Now, I said, now we drain it. And just like that, the game changed. 2 days later, we received another envelope. This one came folded in half, taped to our mailbox with a piece of glittery washi tape, Karen's signature flourish. It was both petty and precise, like a cupcake with a razor blade baked inside. Notice, improper landscaping protocol violation fine, $25 reason. decorative gnome exceeding visual acceptability standards. I didn't laugh. Erin did, loudly. He's wearing a fishing hat, she said, pointing to the tiny, grinning ceramic gnome in question. How can you hate a guy in a fishing hat? She's not attacking the gnome, I muttered, staring at the notice. She's attacking our peace. Karen had declared war. Not with armies, not with swords, but with violations. With paperwork and policy wielded like weapons from her throne at the end of Willow Lane. And suddenly, every day came with a new skirmish. One morning, it was a failure to edge lawn per contour guideline citation, a $15 offense. Next, a $10 fine for leaving our recycling bin visible for more than 18 minutes after pickup. She clocked us. 18 minutes. It wasn't just us. Our neighbor Tom, retired mechanic, beer enthusiast, and local conspiracy theorist, was her other favorite target. We'd chat across the fence at dusk while he sipped cheap lager and offered his unsolicited wisdom. She's measuring your grass again, he told me one evening, not bothering to lower his voice. Sure enough, there she was, Karen Grant, squatting on my lawn like an overzealous landscaper/villain, squinting at a ruler in the fading light. I waved. She didn't wave back. You know what she reminds me of? Tom asked, scratching his beard. Those birds that steal shiny stuff for their nests. Except she hoards control, collects it in little jars, and puts bows on them. I think she eats control for breakfast, Erin muttered. Karen wasn't just obsessed with authority. She thrived on confrontation. Her face lit up when you argued. Her heels clicked a little harder when she delivered a violation notice. The woman had somehow made the phrase community standards sound like a threat whispered in a dark alley. So we stopped feeding her. We followed every rule. To the letter. We trimmed the lawn with a level. Hid the trash bins with a retractable screen. Moved the gnome to the backyard, nestled beside a newly installed HOA-approved herb planter. Karen noticed. She always noticed, but she couldn't do anything. Not yet. We played the long game. And while we played, we planned. Because the petty fines were one thing, tolerable, even laughable. But the real problem, the one that festered like a splinter under the skin, was the pool. Not the pool itself, but what it had become, a symbol. To Karen, it was a community resource, an attraction, a shining feature on her personal HOA resume. To us, it was a liability. Every day we had to check it, make sure no kids had snuck in, no wet footprints leading to lawsuits, no floaties or wrappers or half-eaten snacks drifting in the chlorinated stillness. It wasn't a sanctuary anymore. It was a weapon, one Karen was sharpening. We discovered she'd started listing it in HOA brochures, a subtle line buried in the fine print under neighborhood features. Shared outdoor amenities include green space, seasonal flowers, and a family-friendly pool. Our pool. That's when the decision was made. We're not just draining it, I told Erin one night, standing over the water's calm surface, the moonlight casting long shadows over the deck. We're ripping it out. She nodded slowly, eyes reflecting the shimmer. No more loopholes, she said. We end this with a crater. The next day, I began the paperwork. But not as myself. I submitted an architectural change request using language so dense, so bureaucratically opaque, even Karen would assume it was nothing more than a landscaping tweak. Erin accidentally ran into one of Karen's committee friends at the grocery store and mentioned we were regrading the back for safety. A little white lie, just enough to keep the wolves calm while we built the trap. And then we waited, because according to the HOA rulebook, her rulebook, no response in 30 days meant passive approval. It was the most beautiful, boring loophole in existence, and it was going to destroy her. The demolition crew rolled in at exactly 7:01 a.m., one glorious, legal minute past the neighborhood noise curfew. The excavator groaned like a waking giant, yellow and hulking, its bucket glinting in the morning light as it rolled down the flatbed. The lead operator, Gus, a barrel-chested man with the calm eyes of someone who's seen too much, gave me a curt nod, as if to say, "You sure you want to do this?" I nodded back. This was the moment we'd been working toward for weeks. The permit was ironclad, the request passively approved, and Karen's rubber stamp committee hadn't even bothered to read the description we submitted. Regrading of posterior lot for eco-compliant, drought-friendly stone installation. Translation: we're nuking the pool. By the time a machine punched its metal teeth through the concrete lip, Aaron and I were already on the deck with our coffee. Neighbor Tom stood across the street with binoculars and a thermos like a man watching his favorite soap opera unfold in real time. When the first cracks formed, I half expected Karen to charge across our lawn like a screeching banshee. But there was no sign of her. Old Gus worked methodically, breaking the pool apart like a stale cracker, concrete snapping and folding in on itself. The liner peeled back like wet wallpaper. The chlorine fumes lifted into the air, tangy and final. It was working. We were winning. Until the bucket hit something. Thunk! A dull, hollow sound that made Gus freeze mid-scoop. Not concrete. Not rock. He climbed down into the pit, mud sucking at his boots. A minute later, he waved me over. "Boss," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "You might want to see this." I jumped down beside him. Half buried in wet earth was a box. A long, metal footlocker, olive green and rusted at the hinges. The kind you see in war movies. No labels. No markings. Just heavy-duty latches crusted with age. My stomach sank. This wasn't part of the plan. Could be old tools, Gus muttered. Or not tools. He let the implication hang. I stared at the box, my brain scrambling for logic. How'd he miss this? I dug most of this pit myself years ago. There'd been nothing but dirt and stubborn clay, which meant this box had been buried before we ever bought the house. Erin appeared at the edge of the hole, her face pale. "What is it?" "No idea," I called up. "But if we call the police, this becomes a crime scene. Demolition stops. Project's dead. Karen would win. She'd keep the pool, and we'd be stuck with a half-dug disaster for months, maybe longer." I made a decision. "Gus, work around this spot. Don't hit it again. I'll deal with it." He gave a slow nod, the kind that said, "Whatever this is, I didn't see it." Together, we hauled the locker out of the pit, wrapped it in a tarp, and rolled it into the garage under cover of the roaring machinery. By dusk, the pool was gone. Just a crater and gravel piles left behind. Karen never showed, but I didn't care, because the box was all I could think about. That night, the garage was still and cold, the smell of damp earth clinging to the air. Aaron and I stood before the green locker like it was an altar. The silence between us was thick. "What if it's something bad?" she whispered. "It's already something bad," I said, "because it's a secret someone wanted buried." I grabbed the wire brush and a can of penetrating oil. No crowbars, no drama, just quiet resolve. It took an hour. When the final latch gave with a creak and a groan, I lifted the lid slowly. No gold, no weapons, no bones, just paper. Stacks of yellowing manila folders, ledgers, and brittle rubber bands. A musty stench of age and secrets spilled into the air. Aaron leaned in. "What is all this?" I pulled out the first folder, the label barely legible in faded ink. Oak Creek HOA Land Acquisition, 2008. My heart stopped. Inside were documents. Maps, letters, contracts, notes scribbled in the margins. Names I recognized. Karen's name. My backyard wasn't just the site of a turf war. It was a graveyard of buried corruption, and I had just exhumed the skeletons. We didn't sleep that night. Erin sat cross-legged on the garage floor, a blanket draped over her shoulders. I sat across from her, surrounded by manila folders and forgotten ink. The space heater hummed like a nervous heartbeat. Each document we read pulled us deeper into something we hadn't asked for and couldn't walk away from. "They built the neighborhood on fraud," Erin whispered, her voice tight. "This isn't just bad bookkeeping." "No," I said, holding up a document. "This is criminal. Bid rigging, kickbacks, phantom community projects paid out of a fake improvement fund." Every piece of paper pointed to the same rot. The original HOA board was in bed with the developer. And at the center of it all, Richard Grant, Karen's husband. His name was everywhere, on checks, meeting minutes, contracts. And right below his, written in clean cursive ink like a final seal, Karen Grant, HOA secretary. Witness. She hadn't stumbled into power. She'd inherited it, clawed it into her hands, and locked it down with years of silence and intimidation. It's all here, Erin said, running her fingers through her hair. And she's been sitting on it like a dragon hoarding gold. I stared down at the folder in my lap. Oak Creek Subdivision, Preliminary Survey. At the bottom, I noticed a strange annotation. Red ink, circled in shaky penmanship. Lot 42, Community Area Designation to be omitted before filing. Bonus pending. My lot. My backyard. Oh my God, I murmured. Erin looked up. What? I turned the page so she could read it. This land, our home, was supposed to be community property, a park, or a greenbelt, something for the whole neighborhood. Richard and Karen erased that line on the final filing and sold it under the table. She blinked. So you're saying? I'm saying we might not legally own this house. The silence that followed was suffocating. This was no longer about gnomes or fines or even the pool. This was about our life, our home, our name on a deed that might be backed by lies. Erin didn't cry. She clenched her fists and exhaled like someone preparing for war. She knew, she said through gritted teeth. She knew if we ever dug too deep, literally, we'd find this. That's why she fought so hard. Why she picked fights, kept you busy, fined us into exhaustion. She wanted us gone, before we discovered the truth. And we had. But now we were holding a bomb. If we exposed her, it wouldn't just ruin Karen. It could unravel our property, void our title, unleash a legal mess that could swallow us whole. She's not playing HOA president, I said. She's protecting a legacy of fraud. And if we go public, we lose everything. I watched my wife sit in the quiet and process that. The dream we'd built, the backyard, the future, the forever home, balanced on a lie signed in red ink. So what do we do? She asked. I didn't have an answer. Do we burn the evidence? Pretend we never saw it? Keep letting Karen rule through fear so our deed stays intact? Or do we fight? My eyes scanned the documents again, and then I saw something smaller, easier to grasp. Landscaping invoices from a company that charged $45,000 to plant 6 trees. I pulled another $20,000 for community deck refinishing. There were dozens of these, all paid by the HOA, all signed by Karen. She paid her cousin to repaint the clubhouse. Twice. In the same week, I said, showing Erin. Her brow furrowed. That's fraud. Clean, provable fraud. No land title stuff. Just straight-up theft. I nodded slowly. The path was forming. We hit her there first. Not with the nuke. With the knife. Erin stood up, resolve etched into her face. Then let's gather allies. Quietly. The one she's hurt. The one she's fined, bullied, humiliated. This isn't just about us anymore, I said. It never was. And with that, Operation Zen Garden became Operation Guillotine. The rain began 10 minutes before the meeting. It started as a whisper, a slow, building patter against the shingles of the community clubhouse. By the time we arrived, it was coming down in sheets, soaking the sidewalk and drumming on the windows like a war drum. Appropriate, I thought. Every storm needs thunder. Inside, the folding chairs were nearly full. Neighbors we hadn't spoken to in months, years, now whispered anxiously, eyes darting between printed documents and the front of the room where a makeshift podium waited. Erin stood by the door, handing out packets. Each file was tailored, a surgical strike of evidence. Overpriced landscaping. Duplicate charges. HOA dues funneled to Karen's cousin's paving company. Itemized betrayal in 12-point times New Roman. I watched the room from a corner. The widow from the corner house held a page in her trembling hands, eyes burning holes through the numbers. Tom leaned over to whisper something to her, and for the first time in ages, she smiled. Tight. Dangerous. Then the door opened. Karen Grant entered like a storm front in heels. Drenched in a black pantsuit and contempt, she walked straight to the front like she still owned the air. Her eyes scanned the room and saw what I already had, control slipping through her fingers like rainwater. She saw the lawyer I'd invited. Neutral posture, briefcase unopened. She saw Erin by the door. She saw me at the front, one hand resting casually on the mic. "You're wasting everyone's time," she hissed as she passed. I didn't reply. The mic popped as I switched it on. "Thank you all for coming. I know it's late. I know it's storming. But we're here because something is broken. Not the roads, or the fencing, or the clubhouse sink. We're here because trust was broken." Karen scoffed, loud enough for the second row to flinch. I held up a document. "This is an invoice for 6 trees, charged at $7,500 each. Signed by Karen Grant." I held up another. "This is the company's website. Their rate, $400 per tree. Same trees." A quiet gasp from the crowd. "Here's a second invoice for the clubhouse deck. Redone twice. In the same week." She said it was a mistake, someone whispered. Was it a mistake when her brother-in-law's name was on the deposit slip? I asked. Silence. Then from the back, Tom's gravelly voice. "Tell them about the fake community swim schedule." Karen shot up, eyes blazing. "This is a circus," she snapped. "These are lies. Fabricated. That man," she pointed at me, "dug up his yard to create this performance. You're all being manipulated." Aaron stepped forward, voice like a scalpel. "Then explain why the HOA paid $18,000 for a patio set that's been sitting in your backyard for 3 years. Karen paled. The lawyer unfolded his arms. Neighbors turned. Some stood. "I move for a vote of no confidence," said the widow, voice shaking but loud. I seconded. Tom bellowed. Hands rose. Dozens. Then more. Karen tried to interrupt, but her words were drowned by the thunder outside and the righteous silence inside. She froze, a queen dethroned by her own court. Then she did what she'd never done before. She fled, clutching her leather binder to her chest. She pushed through the crowd and vanished into the storm, heels slipping in the parking lot as lightning etched her silhouette in electric white. We didn't cheer. No one clapped. We just exhaled. It was over. But in the silence, I felt the shift. We hadn't just removed a tyrant. We had reclaimed something larger. The idea that this place, this neighborhood, these homes belonged to the people who lived in them. Erin touched my hand, her voice low. We didn't just win. We woke up the whole damn street. I looked out at the faces now meeting each other, nodding, smiling cautiously, talking again after years of fences and fear. The war had ended, but the rebuilding had just begun. 3 weeks later, the Zen garden was finished. A winding path of crushed granite curved through raked gravel, flanked by 3 towering basalt boulders and a single maple tree. No fence, no look, just stillness, clean lines, silence. And for the first time in years, it was truly ours. Aaron and I sat on the deck, mugs in hand, watching the evening settle over our backyard like a soft blanket. The sun dipped low behind the rooftops, casting golden shadows across the gravel. The air was quiet, save for the distant hum of cicadas and the rustling of wind through the leaves. No yelling, no laughter from trespassing children, no stilettos sinking into wet grass. No Karen, do you think she'll ever come back? Aaron asked. I didn't answer right away. I let the question linger in the breeze like a ghost. She left her binder, I finally said, nodding toward the corner of the garage where it still sat, untouched. Its faux leather cover was fraying at the edges, filled with color-coded tabs and violation templates she'd once wielded like a sword. I think that was the last thing she ever really loved. I added. Erin didn't laugh. She just looked down at her tea, swirled it, and said, she used it to hurt people. She used it to stay in control, I said, because without it, she didn't know who she was. The district attorney's office had called us 2 days after the vote. They had received our evidence. They didn't ask where we got it, and we didn't volunteer. They didn't need to. The trail was clear enough. Decades of embezzlement, backdoor deals, and paper trails Karen had never imagined would see daylight. She and Richard took a plea. No trial, no spectacle, just signatures, restitution, and disgrace. They moved out overnight. U-Haul in the rain. No ice, just the sound of heavy boxes hitting wet pavement. Their house went up for sale a week later. It's still empty. Windows dark. Curtains drawn. Ghost town vibes. And Oak Creek? It changed. We got a new board. one that doesn't fine people for their grass being too tall or their gnomes being too happy. People started waving again. Conversations bloomed at mailboxes. Someone even left zucchini on our porch, anonymously, like some kind of peace offering from suburbia. Tom called it post-dictatorship joy. Aaron calls it finally breathing again. As for the documents, the land title, the altered maps, the deal that nearly unraveled everything, we handed those over too. Quietly, carefully. It took some work, but the city planning department and the HOA's legal team reissued our deed, this time legitimate. Ironclad. No secrets buried in their knees. The lot is ours. Truly ours. I still think about that box. Sometimes I dream about it, not the papers, but the sound it made when we opened it. That quiet hiss of stale air and old lies. The feeling that something ancient was exhaling its last breath. That was the real war, I think. Not the fines, or the pool, or the parties. It was the war over truth, over silence, over power built on fear. I remember the first time Karen fined me for locking my own gate. I remember the way I laughed, then hesitated, then went quiet, the seed of self-doubt she planted with every envelope. I think that was her real strategy all along. Not control through force, but control through erosion. Little by little, she wore people down, made them question what belonged to them. But not anymore. Not here. Not us. I stood up and walked down the steps into the garden. The gravel crunched softly under my feet. The boulders stood tall, casting long shadows across the dusk. Erin joined me a moment later, her hand slipping into mine. This, she whispered, was worth it. I looked around at the clean lines, the sharp edges, the calm, and I realized something. We hadn't just taken back our yard. We had taken back our voice, our dignity, our right to peace. And peace, I've learned, is not the absence of noise. It's the absence of fear. As the wind swept over the garden, ruffling the surface of the gravel in gentle waves, I squeezed Erin's hand. We built this out of spite, I said with a half smile. She smirked. In serenity, and in that quiet space, beneath the maple tree, we stood in the ruins of a war. Victorious. Together. Free.